all using brainwaves.
Incredible. Well, I mean, this is really so far beyond what is interesting also. I mean, because you're talking about manipulating humans. I'm wondering if there's also corollaries with animals, and then you could take, for example, and this is crazy, but wild animals and turn them into weapons.
Sure, that would be possible. I mean, all of the research usually starts with animals, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's already being attempted.
Right.
Maybe that's why they're having all the mountain lion attacks in California there for a while.
Right. Anything's possible. I mean, it's very hard to determine whether or not people themselves are believable and authentic at this point. I mean, it's, in other words, when you have such mind control, you can also have, synthetic beings that are controlled then using this kind of technology and so on and so forth. I mean, there's nanotechnology, from what I understand, that is also able to create physical beings that can be manipulated using this kind of thing. And then there's also, if nanobots in other words, become intelligent or manipulated using this kind of, because you're talking about a manipulation and you're talking about a biofeedback kind of mechanism within any kind of, in other words, even a computer eventually is like a biofeedback device.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it just goes all different directions. It's kind of mind-boggling to even start contemplating it. Let's come back at the other side of the hour. I really appreciate you being on with me.
Sure.
This is Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot, and we should be back on the air with Dr. John Hall. John, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Carrie.
Okay, great. So I'm trying technology here. I'm being told some people are letting that there's a lot of echo on my voice tonight, so I wanted to change a connection and see if we have a little less echo on my end. At any rate, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about where you think this is going and how people can protect themselves.
Well, I think, as I said, my particular theory is that this eventually is going to be a mass population control technology. Really, the knowledge of it right now is probably one of your best protections, because invariably what happens with most of the victims is that you start getting attacked with directed energy or start hearing voices, and you start complaining of that to people and then get further victimized by the psychiatric community. So really knowing what it is and knowing what not to complain about is probably, as far as your livelihood, the best protection. The psychiatric community, to some extent, is probably in on the whole thing based on their past. It was psychiatrists that were at the forefront of most of the mind control experiments of MKUltra, and I would assume it is the same thing today. Now, that doesn't necessarily translate down to the ground level where your community or neighborhood psychiatrist that you may be sent to when you tell your boss you're under surveillance. They truly may just not have any knowledge of the technology, but usually even presenting it to them in the form of documents still doesn't do any good. If you're hearing something that they can't hear, then you're delusional until proven otherwise. So knowing what it is when you first start hearing it, so someone can convince you to see a psychiatrist, or a lot of people start thinking that it's completely spiritual when, as I said, a lot of times, if you have voices telling you to do stuff that you don't ordinarily want to do, and while you're being attacked and while you're being stalked, then look at harassment instead of a spiritual cause. So knowledge is probably the best protection we have right now. The other good protection is altering your EEG. Most of this is done through remote neural monitoring is the catchphrase for it, or EEG recognition. That's how someone gets targeted. Everybody has a slightly different EEG. It gives off a slightly different ELF wave signature. So they can actually pick you out of a crowd of thousands based on your EEG. And what we've noticed through working with victims, that if you can alter your EEG, it's hard to explain how to do that, but it's done kind of through a biofeedback type of mechanism. And the example I give to people is, and I mention this in the book, if you're looking out into your backyard, and let's say you're looking at a swing set in the backyard, in your mind's eye, trick your mind into seeing a dinosaur or a big purple Barney. What they're picking up on with the remote neural monitoring is what your brain is sensing, not what the lens of your eye is actually seeing. It's not so physical that they're actually using the eye as a lens to see what you see, or to smell what you smell, or to hear what you hear. It's all being done at an EEG level. So if you make yourself see something that's not there, that's what they'll see. And that's, I guess, the best example I can give of how to alter the EEG.
Well, actually, I think that's very good. I've been reading some things that do talk about that notion. And another concept that I heard that I always thought was really brilliant was to visualize snow, that pure white, to white out your mind is a way of interfering with mind control efforts.
Oh, definitely. Either picturing bright white or pitch black. If you can picture complete darkness, then they don't see anything. And you're right, the bright white actually messes with the monitors that they're actually watching on. Because the monitors that they're actually looking at is still dependent on current technology. And as you know, computer screens don't like real bright colors, bright white specifically, and like I said, complete darkness. If you can imagine in your mind complete darkness, and you can do the same thing with auditory responses. Make yourself hear something that you're not really hearing. Project white noise while you're having a conversation with someone, and that takes some training. And that's one of the things we're looking at doing is actually getting this down to a trainable method where we can train people to do these, to use different parts of the mind simultaneously, which a lot of people have a hard time with until they're trained to do it. Because they can hear a conversation you're having with someone by picking up your auditory responses in the brain.
Okay, I'm in touch with somebody who's giving me some great ideas here, and this person has a background in this area, and they are suggesting that another thing you can do is change your mode of discussion and think the way you think, like rapidly switching channels, so to speak, in your brain. Thinking inconsistently, or also thinking irrationally, such as lettuce growing in concrete or something of that nature, something that doesn't match.
Exactly.
Can throw off, it's like the idea of throwing off a computer, it sounds to me like.
Exactly. If you look at it, if you picture them picking up your brain waves in a pure sine wave pattern, anything you can do to break that sine wave, to break the traditional pattern that they're used to targeting and used to sensing, will do it. And that's one of the ways to cover up conversation. If you're having a conversation that you want to make sure that they can't listen to, that's one of the ways you do it, is to train the mind to still focus on the person you're conversing with, have the conversation, but trick your mind into thinking that it's hearing extremely loud white noise. And what they'll hear is the white noise and not the conversation. It's all EEG based, and that's one of the things we need to work on, is different training methods to do that. And that's, and it's like I said, it's a hard thing to explain to someone that's never thought about breaking down the way the mind works. So.
Yeah, it's exciting that you're thinking along those lines, and that you're planning on possibly even teaching people to protect themselves in that way.